My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. A special welcome to the members of our make-believe monastery, and a special welcome to those members who have been with us for a very long time, if not from the beginning. I appreciate your consistent support. Let's close our eyes, turn inward. Underneath the storm, underneath the fire even, there is a still voice, a silence really, peace. Peace. Loving kindness comes to mind. Joy. When you pay attention to the world around you, you notice how everything is alive. How everything is connected. How you are one with everything. The beauty, the goodness, in this pursuit, the search for truth, for understanding, for knowing. And we use all means possible, also even words. And then specifically for this year, the words of Plato. We're in the, dialogue. Gorgeous. Socrates speaks. And must not the just man always desire to do what is just? Gorgeous. That is clearly the inference. Socrates, surely then the just man will never consent to do injustice. Gorgias, certainly not. Socrates, and according to the argument, the rhetorician must be a just man. Gorgias, yes. Socrates, and will therefore never be willing to do injustice. Gorgias, clearly not. Socrates, but do you remember saying just now that the trainer is not to be accused or banished if the pugilist makes a wrong use of his pugilistic art? And in like manner, if the rhetorician makes a bad and unjust use of his rhetoric, that is not to be laid at the charge of his teacher, who is not to be banished, but the wrongdoer himself, who made a bad use of his rhetoric. He is to be banished. Was not that said? Gorgias. Yes, it was. Socrates. But now we are affirming that the aforesaid rhetorician will never have done injustice at all. Gorgias. True. Socrates. And at the very outset, Gorgias, it was said that rhetoric treated of discourse, not like arithmetic, about odd and even, but about just and unjust. Was not that said? Gorgias. Yes. I was thinking at the time when I heard you saying so that rhetoric, which is always discoursing about justice, could not possibly be an unjust thing. But when you added shortly afterwards that the rhetorician might make a bad use of rhetoric, I noted with surprise the inconsistency into which you had fallen. And I said that if you thought, as I did, that there was a gain in being refuted, there would be an advantage in going on with the question. But if not, I would leave off. And in the course of our investigations, as you will see yourself, the rhetorician has been acknowledged to be incapable of making an unjust use of rhetoric, or of willingness to do injustice. By the dog, Gorgias, there will be a great deal of discussion before we get at the truth of all this. There will be a great deal of discussion before we get to the truth of all this. Yay. Promise. Polus. And do even you, Socrates, seriously believe that you are now saying about rhetoric? What? About because Gorgias was ashamed to deny that the rhetorician knew the just and the honorable and the good, and admitted that to any one who came to him ignorant of them, he could teach them? And then out of this admission there arose a contradiction, the thing which you dearly love, and to which not he but you brought the argument by your captious questions. Do you seriously believe that there is any truth in all this? Will anyone ever acknowledge that he does not know or cannot teach the nature of justice? The truth is that there is a great want of manners in bringing the argument to such a pass. Socrates. Illustrious Polus, the reason why we provide ourselves with friends and children is that when we get old and stumble, a younger generation may be at hand to set us on our legs again in our words and in our actions. And now, if I and Gorgias are stumbling, here are you who should raise us up. And I, for my part, engage to retract any error into which you may think that I have fallen, upon one condition. Polus. What condition? Socrates. That you contract, Polus, the length of speech in which you indulged at first. Polus. What? Do you mean that I may not use as many words as I please? Socrates. Only to think, my friend, that having come on a visit to Athens, which is the most free-spoken state in Greece, you, when you get there, and you alone, should be deprived of the power of speech. That would be hard indeed. But then consider my case. Shall not I be very hardly used, if, when you are making a long oration and refusing to answer what you are asked, I am compelled to stay and listen to you, and may not go away? I say rather, if you have a real interest in the argument, or, to repeat my former expression, have any desire to set it on its legs, take back any statement which you please, and in your turn ask and answer. Like myself and Gorgias, refute and be refuted. For I suppose that you would claim to know what Gorgias knows, would you not? Polus. Yes. And you, like him, invite anyone to ask you about anything which he pleases, and you will know how to answer him? Polus. To be sure. Socrates. And now, which will you do, ask or answer? Polus. I will ask, and do you answer me, Socrates, the same question which Gorgias, as you suppose, is unable to answer. What is rhetoric? Socrates. Do you mean what sort of an art? Polus. Yes. Socrates. To say the truth, Polus, it is not an art at all, in my opinion. Polus. Then what, in your opinion, is rhetoric? Socrates. A thing which, as I was lately reading in a book of yours, you say that you have made an art. Polus. What thing? Socrates. I should say a sort of experience. The other translation has knack. Polus. Does rhetoric seem to you to be an experience or a knack? Socrates. That is my view, but you may be of another mind. Polus. An experience in what? A knack for what? Socrates. An experience in producing a sort of delight and gratification or pleasure. Polus. And if able to gratify others, must not rhetoric be a fine thing? Socrates. What are you saying, Polus? Why do you ask me whether rhetoric is a fine thing or not, when I have not as yet told you what rhetoric is? Polus. Did I not hear you say that rhetoric was a sort of experience, knack? Socrates. Will you, who are so desirous to gratify others, afford a slight gratification to me? Polus. I will. Socrates. Will you ask me what sort of an art is cookery? The other translation has pastry baking, which is maybe closer to the intention, because cookery can be good. Pastry baking. Polus. What sort of an art is pastry baking? Socrates. Not an art at all, Polus. Polus. What then? I should say an experience or a knack. Polus. In what? I wish you would explain to me. Socrates. An experience in producing a sort of delight and gratification, pleasure. Polus. Polus. Then are cookery and rhetoric the same? Socrates. No, they are only different parts of the same profession. Polus. Of what profession? Socrates. I'm afraid that the truth may seem discourteous, rather crude, and I hesitate to answer, lest Gorgias should imagine that I am making fun of his own profession. For whether or not this isn't that art of rhetoric which Gorgias practices, I really cannot tell. From what he was just now saying, nothing appeared of what he thought of his art. but the rhetoric which I mean is a part of a not very credible whole. Gorgeous. A part of what, Socrates? Say what you mean, and never mind me. The other translation as, don't spare my feelings. Socrates. In my opinion then, Gorgeous, the whole of which rhetoric is a part is not an art at all, but the habit of a bold and ready wit, which knows how to manage mankind. This habit I sum up under the word flattery, and it appears to me to have many other parts, one of which is cookery, or pastry baking, which may seem to be an art, but as I maintain is only an experience or routine, and not an art. Another part is rhetoric, and the art of attiring and sophistry are two others. Sophistry. Thus there are 4 branches, and 4 different things answering to them. And Polus may ask if he likes, for he has not as yet been informed what part of flattery is rhetoric. He did not see that I had not yet answered him when he proceeded to ask a further question, whether I do not think rhetoric a fine thing. But I shall not tell him whether rhetoric is a fine thing or not until I have first answered what is rhetoric. For that would not be right, Polus, but I shall be happy to answer, if you will ask me, what part of flattery is rhetoric. Polus, I will ask, and do you answer. What part of flattery is rhetoric? Socrates. Will you understand my answer? Rhetoric, according to my view, is the ghost or the counterfeit of the part of politics. Polus, and noble or ignoble? Again, immediately jumping to the value judgment. Socrates, without being able to understand and know what it is, judging if it's good or not. Socrates, ignoble, I should say, if I am compelled to answer, for I call what is bad ignoble, though I doubt whether you understand what I was saying before. Gorgeous, indeed, Socrates, I cannot say that I understand myself. Socrates, I do not wonder, Gorgeous, for I have not as yet explained myself, and our friend Polus, cult by name and cult by nature, is apt to run away. Then in brackets it says, this is an untranslatable play on the name Polus, which means a cult. Not a cult. You can leave any time you like. Gorgeous. Never mind him, but explain to me what you mean by saying that rhetoric is the counterfeit of a part of politics. Socrates. I will try then to explain my notion of rhetoric, and if I am mistaken, my friend Polus shall refute me. We may assume the existence of bodies and of souls. Gorgias. Yeah, of course. Socrates. You will further admit that there is a good condition of either of them. Gorgias. Yes. Socrates. Which condition may not be really good, but good only in appearance? I mean to say that there are many persons who appear to be good, in good health, and whom only a physician or trainer will discern at first sight not to be in good health. True. And this applies not only to the body, but also to the soul. In either there may be that which gives the appearance of health, and not the reality. Gorgeous. Yes, certainly. Socrates. And now I will endeavor to explain to you more clearly what I mean. The soul and the body, I did not do this division very well. I should have left this for tomorrow's reading and read a little bit further yesterday. And now I will endeavor to explain to you more clearly what I mean. The soul and body being two, have two arts corresponding to them. There is the art of politics attending on the soul, and another art attending on the body, of which I know no single name, but which may be described as having two divisions, one of them gymnastics and the other medicine. And in politics there is a legislative part, which answers to gymnastics, as justice does to medicine. And the two parts run into one another, justice having to do with the same subject as legislation, and medicine with the same subject as gymnastics, but with a difference. Now, seeing that there are these four arts, two attending on the body and two on the soul, for their highest good, flattery, knowing, or rather guessing their natures, has distributed herself into four shams or simulations of them. She puts on the likeness of some one or other of them, and pretends to be that which she simulates, and having no regard for men's highest interest, is ever making pleasure the bait of the unwary, and deceiving them into the belief that she is of the highest value to them. Cookery or pastry baking simulates the disguise of medicine. And pretends to know what food is the best for the body. And if the physician and the cook had to enter into a competition in which children were the judges, or men who had no more sense than children, as to which of them best understands the goodness or badness of food, the physician would be starved to death. And that's why I say pastry baking is better than cooking, because you can actually have really good cooking. Prevention is better than cure, they say. A flattery I deem this to be, and an ignoble sort, Polus, for to you I am now addressing myself, because it aims at pleasure without any thought of the best. An art I do not call it, but only an experience, because it is unable to explain or to give a reason of the nature of its own applications. And I do not call any irrational thing an art. But if you dispute my words, I am prepared to argue in defense of them. Thus far, our reading of the day. Experience art. What is art? And what is an experience? And why do Socrates think they differ from each other? An experience is something unable to give a reason of its own application, something irrational. Something indeed probably that you cannot argue your way into or out of. And indeed, if this experience is just a form of flattery, then I get something that I read comes to mind, but I don't know where I read it. No, it's not here. Oh. I managed to read only the Grand Inquisitor today. I didn't do a lot of things that's on my to-do list for Saturday, because one cannot simply read the Grand Inquisitor and then go on with your life as if, or with reading for that matter, as if your soul has not been fundamentally shaken. It did strike me that what seemed to be, well, according to the, I don't know according to who, Dostoevsky, the Grand Inquisitor, what Jesus denied when he denied the free temptations. Where's that all written, all free written down? Well, the miracle, the proof, and then of course the power. It was interesting, the way he translated at least. Is that if you jump and they catch you, you will know that you are the Son of God. Did you forget that peace of mind and even death are dearer to man than the free choice and the cognition of good and evil? What Socrates seems to be saying here tonight is, how can we know what is good and evil? How can we place a value judgment when we do not even know what something is? The whole appearance versus reality question also comes up. The just man desires to do what is just. Virtue ethics, I wrote down. Henceforth, in place of the old firm law, man was himself, because of Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ, to decide with a free heart what is good and what is evil, with only your image before him to guide him. That sounds like a type of subjective morality to me. And then I think last night I said something about how that makes phronesis, practical wisdom, indispensable. That makes the whole question, or all the questions of what is this, rather important. And that makes the sentence, but man seek to bow down before that which is already beyond dispute. So far beyond dispute that all human beings will instantly agree to a universal bowing down before it. We are lazy in our pursuit of what is, and hence in our pursuit of what is good and what is evil. And so we like being told what to do, what to think, what to believe, who to be. But that is no way to live. Had you accepted the Grand Inquisitor says to Jesus, that third counsel of the mighty spirit, the tempter, you would have supplied everything that man seeks in the world. That is, someone to bow down before, someone to entrust one's conscience to. Conscience, one's conscience to. And the opposite is called, I feel what we need is exactly the opposite. To take responsibility of our own conscience, to listen to our own still voice, small still voice, and to stand even in the face of madness, even in the face of I was speaking to Ryan again this week. And I told him that I'm actually afraid of the old guard that is now so vehemently standing up for the old ways, because it's powerful people, and I've seen it gone wrong in the past. But the thing is, I think that they are driven by fear, and so I do not want to fear. I don't also want to be driven by fear. And then he said something that was so beautiful that it really moved me. About, he's not a orthodox, traditional Christian. I don't think he even calls himself a Christian. But that was then exactly the move on the cross. That, how did he say that? Something like, well, fear has won. But not in me, so be it. Because Jesus was also fighting the authorities and the established religions of his day, and they won. Alas, they won in not only in killing him, but also Paul the Jew. Was he a Pharisee? The one who stoned, or who held the coats when Stephen was stoned to death. And approved. Found a very orthodox, traditional way to interpret the death on the cross, which I happen to believe is to be false. If Paul can base his religion on, and they're not Rebecca's Paul, but the Paul of the Bible, on a vision, then so can I. what is needed and what the Grand Inquisitor says, because he holds that they have a few select who know the truth, who know good and evil, and the rest can just all stay ignorant. And that connects to yesterday's saying how dangerous the ignorance of the multitude is. And how if one is to be saved, then all has to be saved. And we who for the sake of their happiness have taken their sins upon us, we shall stand before you and say, judge us if you can and dare. That's what the Inquisitor says. And I have said recently that if I were to baptize anyone, it would be into taking the sins of the world upon themselves instead of just washing it away. But not like this. Not for the sake of their happiness, I wrote, but so that they too may carry their own sins and the sake of the world with it, the sins of the world with it. So being empowered to empower others. Not being empowered to be in power. Folly writes about, he's such a joy to read with. He writes about this, what Dostoevsky thinks and what the Inquisitor says, and how the two are so close and yet so far apart. The close enemy. Which is why it's important to know what is, if we want to know what is good and what is not. I don't know how to advise you on how to know what is, but I do want to remind you that was maybe too big a bite. A mouthful. To eat your fruit. Eat your fruit. Sophia herself will guide your way.